Hi guys! Alright, so what I thought I'd do is just kind of go through the process of one of my latest pieces of work that I've done. Just kind of explain the steps that I took and why I did certain things and kind of where I started off from, basically. So here you're looking at the final photo. As you can see, it was, Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so let's go straight down right from the beginning. So this was my original photo that I decided to work with. That's that. So as you can see in my setup, I put up a backdrop and I had a stool and all that. Yes, I did fall off the stool. That was quite fun. But then I started in adding different components from other photos that I had taken. No, wrong group. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so if you look here, I have extra shots. So we put some of these up. As you can see, I cut myself out so I could work with warping myself. Then I tilted it a bit, got rid of some more areas. Erasing with my Wacom tablet and a little pen. I find it's easier and I can control it better. And yeah, it just makes life easier. Then as you can see, I took away the colour from the dress and I made myself smaller and all that. I cut out my legs, so that was a photo of me standing up and kicking my leg out, and as you can see, my foot's missing. So eventually I added in a foot. I don't know where the foot is, but it's there. And as you can see, I took this photo. So this hair, I took my hair from this photo, which ended up being this, but I didn't use it in the end because I didn't really like how solid it looked. It didn't look very wavy enough. So then I found a photo of me hanging my hair down and it had a bit of my neck in. So I realized that was more preferred, as you can see, because, well, you got my neck. So it just made the overall end person look a little bit more realistic. And then here I had taken a photo of me walking to try to get a wave of the dress, but I never ended up using it. But if I had, I would have cut out the dress along here and just warped it to make it look wavy and underwaterish. And here is where I stole a foot from over here. I cut it out and I connected it to the legs over there. So that was just my extra shots. So from here, I cut out all my people, so I decided to work on my background a bit more. So I got a solid, it was a completely solid black. As you can see, there's a bit of blue in it, but I got that background. And then I laid it over with a lighter blue background. But I had taken the opacity down, but as you can see, it was quite a bright blue. So I just took it down just a tad. And then over that, I decided to add a little bit more texture. So this was a photo that I had gotten of Unsplash for just a texture kind of look. Like I said, I did not have any underwater photos. And I really like supporting the photographers on Unsplash. And then from there, I decided to add a bit of depth. So I don't know if you could see from that, I took a paintbrush tool, made the color black. And I just kind of, if I went just for a little example here, and just kind of did a zoop like that across the bottom, making sure my hardness was very light, and it was just a quick little zoop to kind of give that depth of the darkness in the water. And then I added in bubbles. So these are all bubbles from my original photos. I took these from a previous picture that I did because I couldn't find them. And basically what I did was I took an underwater camera, I went to a pool, and I got my friend just to blow a lot of bubbles. And so I took these and I basically just, you know, blended using these. So you see the different ones, but I ended up going with pin light, and I reduced the opacity down to 52%. These bubbles, they just kind of help make the photo a bit more realistic. That it's an underwater photo. You kind of really have to think about what it would look like when you are underwater and how you feel that the photo would come out. So if there was genuinely a person under the water, there'd be a lot of bubbles, especially because I've gone for the falling look. She's fallen from the top, and boom, a lot of the air bubbles just come with it, and they're slowly going up. And then, well, this is all a bit out of order anyway, but I have my falling person. Originally, I had just a bunch of limbs like this. Oh dear, hold on. This was my original falling person, but the more I looked at her, the more I realized that his arm here, her left arm, just looked a little bit weird. And I didn't particularly like that as much, so I decided to not go with that. And I ended up with this, but then I realized I took out the left arm, but then I didn't like that either. So I went and cut out another arm, and I just added it back there. I made it quite dark, so it looks a bit more realistic, because probably when you add more of the darker tones and we go further along, you'll see that is quite dark, but it's more the light's coming from the top. And then to make her bottom line of the dress here look a little less harsh, I added in some dark, like a little dark with the paintbrush again, a little swoop. And I just reduced the opacity on that. It's a lot of, it would be like if you were painting natural painting, you'd be adding like the darker tones to make it look a bit more realistic. It's the exact same process for creating photos like this. And then from there, I took another photo of just like water reflection on the ground, and I selected her, and I cut out the photo to be like a little bit more wavy effect. And as we can zoom in here, you can see it there. But I erased it more because you'd see it more on her dress out of everything, but at the top version of the dress that she's just fallen in. So you can see the difference there. And you get a little bit of on her arms and all that, but that's perfectly fine as well. Then from there, I added in another colour. So as you can see, this gives her that really bluey tone, because I didn't want to kind of make it seem like it was an aqua set, like in the tropical islands. I wanted this to be really kind of like deep oceans, a little bit darker. So that's just kind of where I was going for that. And then I added in the splash of her falling in. This again is another photo that I had taken from when I did a shoot with my friend a few years back, and it was the roof of the water. And yeah, I just kind of played with the color tones. I did give it an overlay effect, but then I didn't like how dark it was, because it should be a lot more light at the top there, so I took that out. And I kind of quite like it like that. It just is really blended in. The light's quite evenly up there. And then I also gave it a bit more of a purpley bluey tone, just to kind of make it fit in with the rest of the theme. Sorry. And then from there I added another texture, or added a bit more bubbles, sorry. As you can see here, again, another stock photo. And that just kind of also gave it that depth, because if you were taking the photo, you'd have bubbles and watermarks quite close to the camera lens as well. So this just gives it that effect again, furthermore, to express that it is underwater, which I thought was quite cool. And then, as she's fallen in, because her foot would have been the last thing to hit the water, it would have a bit more predominant bubbles there. So as her foot got in, I've added in a big cluster of bubbles just here. I'm pointing with my finger at the computer instead of using my mouse, to make it seem like her foot's caught the water and it's dragged some of it down with her. Then going from there, I needed to add some lights. So I don't know if you noticed that, it's just a subtle changes over here, just to begin to brighten up, because in water there is streaks of light coming down. So you want to give that effect, but you don't want to make it too harsh. So I started building on the layers. And then I added a bit more light coming straight down on the top, but just ending just below here, because this is where it would be more highlighted areas. And this is also building up to making more defined streaks. Then I added in another bit of texture, but this texture is also made it to be quite bright, as you can now see. but it's given this kind of really underwater texture, and I quite liked it. And again, it gives this photo a bit more of a dreamy kind of look, and it is a very fictional photo. There's no way that this dress or the hair or anything like this would look like this if you took it underwater. But yeah, it does look very fictional. And then I added in some more light streaks, as you can see here. But because we added in those previous layers, they're able to shine a bit more without being so over the top. So that's how I imagine. And I imagine them coming out like this, because from there it would just make things, you know, a bit more clearer. You can see a bit more in the water, and it just makes it a little bit more realistic. And yes, even though it's very obviously fictional, and you're going for that realistic but that fictional look, but you want to try and make it as close as you possibly can. But it's again done with a paintbrush. Took here, just brought right down the size, hardness quite gone, and then making it white and just dragging it down like that. I also, for these previous layers I did down here of the beginning of the light, I did go and make go to blur, and I went to motion blur, and this kind of gives it it really blurs it out basically, and it kind of gives you that length going that way. So that helps again without being so like just a white blob. It's like you got the streaks still, but you got them a bit further and blurred apart. And then to finalize all of this, I added in a dark gradient at the bottom to express that look of darkness. When you see like documentaries of the deep dark ocean, it is quite dark at the bottom, but there's that little bit of area just so there's light, and then it's quite bright at the top. So this was the overall photo in the end. It was actually a lot of fun to shoot. For a photo like this, I do suggest planning it out and writing it out on the sheet, because you'll need to take a lot of separate photos and put them all together. So making sure that you know what photos you want, and really like looking at your piece of paper that you've written it on would help you to create the photo a bit better and understand what you need to do. So like, obviously, take a photo of one arm, then one arm, take a separate photo of the head, the torso, and the legs, and even the feet can be different, but you just want to make sure that you can point it all together in Photoshop and blend it to make it look right. A lot of my inspiration and stock photos from this photo had come from this one that I did 2 years ago for a school board, and this was my first time I ever done a photo like this. Now I'm very proud of this one. I was playing with PowerShell, so it was the whole thing behind it, but that's where this one became an inspiration too. And I love this one because it is very clear cut and a bit more magical, but this one's very dreamy to me. So yeah, if you want to find a clearer tutorial on it, I suggest checking out Brooke Shaden. I'll put a link down in the description below. But she does speed edits and a little bit of tutorials on how she does this, and I've just taken from her and made it my own. So, but yes, if you want to see more, check out my Instagram, and yeah, sweet. Thanks, guys.